So welcome to part 4 of This I Know. Hopefully you've had a great time in this series and as you've been talking in your groups. And so today we're talking about God's promise of help. When my kids were young, I would often hear from the back rooms just a one-word plea: help. One time my son on Christmas, he got a scooter and he started running his scooter through the house and he ended up in our Christmas tree. And I heard, help. Another time, my daughter, she got stuck between the bed and the wall, and all I heard from her was, help. I don't know about you, but I've prayed that as a prayer before. Have you? Where you just pray, God, help. The last few years, I've found myself praying that prayer probably more than ever, and it's just a one-word prayer, help. Through the things that I've gone through, maybe we've gone through as a nation, or you've gone through personally, maybe you've been there before. You look at your life, you see things that are broken or things that aren't where they need to be, and you just pray, help. Or you think, God, help me through whatever I'm going through. Well, the good news for you today is that's the God that we know, and He is a God of help. And so as we talk about God's promise, I want you to see that He really does want to help us. I think we're going to throw Isaiah 41:10 up. And in this verse, he just talks about that you're His, that He is going to help you, that He's got a grip on you, and that through whatever you're going through, He is your help. So number one on your outline, I want you to notice what we find here in this great story. We'll talk about it a little bit, but it's a story about David, and he is on the run from Saul. Saul wanted to kill him, take him out. It's over. David goes on the run. He's supposed to be king, if you remember all of that. And so what we see in this story is that God comes to help a group of people from a city named Keilah, but He uses David to do that. Now, David needed help as well. And so we're going to see that in this story. But number one on your outline, real help is responsive. Did you know that God responds to your needs? Not only does He see your needs and know your needs, but He's responsive to your needs. Look in verses 1 and 2 with me. It says, one day news came to David that the Philistines were at Keilah stealing grain from the threshing floors. David asked the Lord, should I go and attack them? Yes, go and save Keilah, the Lord told him. God is responsive to our needs. He sees them, knows them, He acts upon them, and He is our help. That's His character. That's actually who He is. I wrote this down: the God who holds the world together, He also holds you together. So the first question that we want you to wrestle with a little bit today is this: why are we so often reticent to seek God's help? So if you would, take just a moment, wrestle with that question, and see where you go. So let's jump into point number 2 here, because we're going to notice is that God is our help, but we're also going to notice that help is risky. If you've ever helped somebody, you might have seen this before, or maybe you want to be a help to somebody, but you're thinking, I might find myself in a mess here. But look what David does here. He asks God, can he help? But also he becomes the help. But David's men said, we're afraid here in Judah, meaning that the guys that were with David, they said, hey, this is risky. This is not a certain thing here. They said, we certainly don't want to go to Keilah to fight the whole Philistine army, meaning we may get into a battle we didn't mean to get into. Look what we find in verses 7 and 8. Saul soon learned that David was at Keilah. Good, he said. He exclaimed, we've got him now, meaning Saul has been looking for David. Here's a shot. So Saul mobilized the entire army to march to Keilah and besiege David and his men. So again, help is often, it's risky, it's costly. As a matter of fact, God's help in ridding the world of sin, it cost Him His Son. And so we know that God's help is risky and it costs. There's a price that comes with help. So let me ask you to go to discussion question number 2. Here it is. Why does God limit His help to things related to His plan? Wrestle with that for just a moment in your group. We'll come back. So then finally, point number three, real help is rewarding. If you ever helped anyone or you've received help for yourself, you know there's a reward that comes through all of that. And so David jumps into the situation. God gives him the freedom and the ability to kind of jump into this Keilah situation where they're being being stolen from. The Philistines are stealing from them. Look what we find. So David and his men went to Keilah. They slaughtered the Philistines and took all their livestock, and they rescued the people of Keilah. Down below, Saul hunted him day after day, but God didn't let Saul find him. You see, we talked about the character of God and how he's a God of help. He's a God of rescue. He's a God of response. And you see that all throughout this story, but you also see it all throughout Scripture. And, one of the things that I think about often is one of the best things you can ever do for me is to help my kids. And I think God views us in a very similar way. He's so invested in our lives. He so wants us to be where we need to be that he's going to help. And there's a reward that comes through helping. But let me just ask you to think one other way through this story, and it's just that God used David to help. Meaning it was God's character to help, but he also uses you and I to be the help for people around us. And just that little piece of the story I'd like for you to think about for a moment, and that you and I actually can do God's work in the helping of people around us. And by the way, let me just ask you that question. Who is it around you that you could help? So discussion for this point right here, you'll see, talk about the rewards that come from simply obeying God. So maybe take a moment and do that. And here's the application. Our purpose is to seek God's help and to combat that hurt or habit that you can't overcome. Again, we all need help. There's something going on in every person's life that's listening today. There's something going on, and we all need help. And maybe this is the moment where you take whatever that is and say, God, I need your help. It hasn't come from whatever I'm doing, but God, I need your help. Would you step in and would you help me in this? So if you would, take that question, here it is again, or that discussion, talk about the rewards that come from simply obeying God. Hope you have a great week. We'll catch up with you soon.